Welcome back to Coast to Coast Sports. We're going to very quickly go through as many NFL games as we can today. Recapping week 3, Cowboys-Ravens starting us off. Dude, the Cowboys might be in trouble. I'm not out on the Cowboys yet. And to be fair, Dak's having a good season. CeeDee Lamb having a good season. Kevontae Turpin, low-key having a nice season. Is he now their number 2 guy? I guess he is. I mean, Brandon Cooks also. But the big problem for them is they don't have a run game. They just don't. Like, Ezekiel Elliott looks washed. Rico Dowdle is clearly not ready to be a number 1. Neither is Deuce Vaughn. I mean, this is they can't run the ball. And Dak is not mobile enough to be able to create any sort of trickery for the defense. It's bad. It is officially, clearly a problem. And they're going to have to figure out some sort of way to solve it. Because if they can't run the ball and they can't stop the run, I mean, Derrick Henry ran for like 150 yards on them. And Lamar ran for 47. And Justice Hill went for over 50, I believe. That's a real problem. And Dallas has now ran into the Saints and the Ravens. I'm not sure if the Saints and Ravens are actually great teams. I view the Ravens as a wild card team, and I view the Saints as kind of a fringe wild card team. I know the Saints are 2-1, but they didn't play all that well against Philly. So I don't really know if those are even great teams. And the Cowboys look terrible. And as well, they crushed the Browns. Yes, so did the Giants. So that week 1 win, throw it out the window. It doesn't matter. The Browns are not the same team they were last year. This is the same Browns team that just lost to the Giants. I think Dallas can still make a wild card. I don't think they win that division. And honestly, I think Washington might be better than them. We'll see how they play against the Giants. I'm not selling all my Cowboy stock yet. I'm close to it. But it does reveal running backs matter. The run game matters. And it's funny because they had a chance to go get Derrick Henry or Josh Jacobs or Aaron Jones or Saquon Barkley. 4 running backs who have all immediately had a massive impact on their team. Even if you didn't want to get one of those 4 guys, how about Devin Singletary having a really nice start to the season for the New York Giants? I mean, there were running backs that were available to get, and the Cowboys passed on them. Instead, they got Zeke, a washed-up Zeke, who is not good anymore. J.K. Dobbins was available. You see what he's doing in Los Angeles. And, like, there were running backs that could have been signed. And the Cowboys didn't sign them. And that's a problem. Because they can't run the ball. Look at this. Ezekiel Elliott looks washed. He's averaging like 3 yards a carry. If I was them, I would immediately try to trade for a running back. And I would also... It's early, but Mike Zimmer's defense is just not there yet. It's not there yet. Dan Quinn had that defense dialed in. They have yet to take away the ball. They're not forcing turnovers. Micah Parsons is not playing well. There's some serious worry here for the Cowboys. For the Ravens, I think Lamar looked a lot better. Again, I still think both of these teams will be in the playoffs, but I think they're both wildcard teams at this point. And I'm not sure if either of these teams are winning a playoff game. Which, again, for the Cowboys, pretty much par for the course with them. Because they never win playoff games. Rams-Niners. Dude, how about the Niners? Looking kind of good. I will say this about the Rams and the Niners. For two 1-2 teams, this was a really good football game. Brock Purdy impressed me despite losing. Brock Purdy, I thought, played excellent. And Juwan Jennings, man, how about that? So no CMC. Last week, that was a problem for them. You know, they lost CMC. They didn't have... He's on the IR, of course. And they lost to the Vikings. That was a bad loss. This was an okay loss. They led, of course, now blowing it was tough. And Ronnie Bell dropped a pass that would have sealed the game. But Juwan Jennings played well. Brock Purdy played well. I'm actually not as worried about San Francisco as I am about Dallas. Still a little bit worried, though. Because we've seen this happen before with the Niners where they come into the year as a heavy favorite. And then they struggle early. They get hurt and things kind of fall apart, right? That's what happened in so let's walk through. 2019, they went to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G. 2020, they didn't make the playoffs. Why did they not make the playoffs? Because everyone was hurt, including Jimmy G. Jimmy G missed half the season that year. It was Nick Mullins, who I believe started 8 games for them in 2020 or something like that. They were a 500 team. I think they went 7-9 in 2020. Missed the playoffs. 2021, again, they started slow. I think they were like 5-5 in 2021 at one point. Then they reeled off some wins, snuck into the playoffs as a wild card team, and then won 2 playoff games, went to the NFC Championship game, lost to the Rams. But again, struggled early, barely made the playoffs. 2022, of course, they went on their crazy run. They got CMC with Brock Purdy, and they ended up in the NFC Championship game, and then last year. But this could be a 2020 type season where things just fall apart for them because of injuries. And I'm not sure if Brock Purdy is good enough to overcome that. Now, he looked good against the Rams, but they still lost, which is the tough thing. Meanwhile, for the Rams, I'm not sure how to feel about the Rams either. Right now, I still think they can win the West, because I think the Rams and Niners are both better than Seattle, even though Seattle has a 2-game lead right now over both of these teams. I think these teams are better than the Seahawks. I really do. But they're going to have to prove it when they play Seattle, or else the Seahawks are going to win that division. They're 3-0, and they have a game against the Giants coming up. That could be 4 wins. You got the Falcons, could be 5. I don't know how good Arizona is, but I mean, this division is kind of open right now. And I think Seattle is trying to run away with it early, because I do think the Rams and Niners are going to put things together when they both get healthy. They're both very banged up right now. I think if as they get more healthy, they're going to get much more dangerous. I mean, the Rams didn't have Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua. Credit to Tutu Atwell, had a great game. And Matt Stafford, for what it's worth, I didn't even think Stafford played all that well, but they did win their first game of the season, and they needed it. I mean, I think that fourth quarter saved their season. I really do think that. But I think the Rams are a good team. The Rams are better than the Niners. And I think Shanahan, for what it's worth, Shanahan usually beats McVay, but McVay is starting to figure Shanahan's out a little bit more. And it's a new defensive coordinator in San Francisco. The defense didn't play all that well. The defense did not hold up their end of the bargain. You blow a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. That's mostly on the defense, not on Brock Purdy. How about the Vikings? I did not see this one coming. Dude, the win over the Giants is like, okay, they beat the Giants. Then they beat the Niners, and it was like, yeah, it was a fluky win, maybe Sam Darnold revenge game. This I did not see coming. Sam Darnold is officially on MVP watch. And I say that there's about 20 quarterbacks in the league right now that are on MVP watch. I mean, it's so early. It's super early. So yeah, he does, but 4 touchdowns, 189 yards, and a 31-7 thrashing of Houston. I think it might start to be time to believe in Minnesota. This is a playoff team. And I didn't think they were a playoff team early in the season. Right now, they're a playoff team, man. This is a good football team. I don't know. Could they win that division? So Detroit and Green Bay are both 2-1. Vikings are 3-0. I think I would still take Detroit to win that division. I think the Lions will beat the Vikings when they play. But man, the Vikings look good. They look physical. Their defense is taking the ball away. Remember, CJ Stroud does not throw interceptions. He threw 2 of them against the Vikings. Last year, I think he set the rookie record for the best touchdown to interception ratio. He is not a guy that likes to throw picks, and the Vikings took the ball away from him twice. They're running the ball well. Aaron Jones, when healthy, has always been a top 10 back in this league, and I was worried about him. I thought, he's older, and I wasn't sure what to expect from him. He looks great. He looks like a great complement for that offense. Justin Jefferson's doing his thing. Jalen Naylor looking pretty good. Remember, guys, they still aren't at full strength offensively either. because TJ Hawkinson hasn't played yet this year. You throw in a top 5 tight end onto that offense that's already on a roll. I mean, they're on a roll. Kevin O'Connell, great coach, and Brian Flores, again, is really proving, for what it's worth, Brian Flores was not a good head coach in Miami, but I always thought he could run a defense well, because he had that Miami defense rolling when he was with Miami. He was good with New England's defense, and I don't think he should be a head coach, because he clearly had his issues. He got in a lot of arguments with Tua, and I know he sued the league about a racism charge, but I think the big problem with him was that he was a bad leader because he was fighting with Tua, right? So I don't know if he should ever be a head coach again, but as a defensive coordinator, he's great. He's great. He understands how to run that defense so well, and the Vikings, for a team that I picked to finish last in the division, I now think, I mean, they're clearly better than the Bears. And I think they could challenge Green Bay and Detroit. I'm not ready to go there yet and say they win the division. It kind of has a 2018 feel to it, though, doesn't it? Remember the Case Keenum year when the Vikings just kind of came out of nowhere with Case Keenum at quarterback? Minnesota does this. Every few years, you get a crazy good season out of the Minnesota Vikings, and it always kind of feels like out of nowhere because they're always a little bit underrated going into the season. They're always a little bit, they're not flashy like Green Bay. They're not an up and coming team like Detroit. They're just there. They're just existing, and they're playing really good football. How about the Vikings and the Texans? The Texans were my Super Bowl pick early in the season. I think right now I have to say they haven't shown me yet that they can be a Super Bowl winning team. Now it's very early, but right now I think I would move, if I was a betting man, I think I would move my money away from the Texans and probably put it on Kansas City. Because so far I have not seen it yet from Houston. They're not doing it for me. I thought they could win the Super Bowl. I was very excited about the Texans. They're still 2-1. I still feel good about them winning that division. I still feel good about them getting a top 2 or 3 seed in the AFC, but we'll see. We'll see about Houston. I don't know. I was hoping that they would come back and make things close, and they just didn't. They kind of died. Again, let's be honest. Let's be fair. CJ Stroud was sick. He was playing with a sickness. They didn't have Joe Mixon. And at the same time, I don't think that it's fair for 31. I mean, that was a beatdown. So even when your quarterback's sick and your running back's out, I got to see a little bit more from that for a team that I picked to go to the Super Bowl. We'll see, though. How about Andy Dalton? Yeah, I said it. Andy Dalton and the Carolina Panthers are back. Could we see a Joe Flacco-like renaissance? A Joe Flacco-esque renaissance for Andy Dalton. At 36 years old, he looks pretty good. 3 touchdowns, 300 yards passing. First quarterback to do that this season in his first start in exactly 1 year. The problem with Dalton is we've seen it before. He hasn't been a good quarterback since 2017. He was bad in 2018. He was bad in 2019. He went to the Cowboys and was bad in 2020. He went to the Bears and was bad in 2021. Then he went to the Saints and was bad in 2022. And last year he didn't play. So it's hard for me to believe in him. I think this game says a lot more about the Raiders' terrible defense than it does about Dalton. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. Like I said, though, I talked about this last week. The Panthers' schedule is easy enough that they could win some games with Andy Dalton. Like, I'm going to pull up their schedule. Bengals, who are 0-3. It's a revenge game for Dalton. Could he win that? Absolutely. At home? Yeah, he could win that game. The Bears, he could win that game. The Bears look terrible. The Falcons. Okay, let's say you're on a 3-game winning streak. You're 3-2. The Falcons come to town. They're probably about 3-2 as well. Why can't you beat the Falcons at home? Falcons haven't looked great. How about Washington? Washington's going to be tough. Then Denver. You could beat Denver. The Saints, who I think the magic run is up for them, but we'll see. You could beat the Saints. Then the Giants in Germany. You could beat the Giants in Germany. The Giants aren't great. After the bye, they get Kansas City, who they will lose to. Then Tampa. You could beat Tampa. At home, Tampa hasn't looked great. They just got embarrassed by the Broncos. Eagles and Cowboys will be tough, but the Cowboys might not be. We'll see about the Cowboys. Cardinals, you could probably beat. And then they finish out with Tampa and Atlanta. It obviously, a lot of it comes down to how good are actually the Bucks, Falcons, and Saints. Because if there's not a gap between Carolina and the rest of that division, right now they're a game back. They're 1-2. Everybody else is 2-1. Or the Saints and Bucks are 2-1. It obviously depends on what's the gap between those three teams. But if they can be competitive in the divisional games, they have an easy non-divisional schedule. And two of the games that we thought were going to be hard, which would be Dallas and Cincinnati, I'm not sure if those are hard games anymore. Like, the Bears are going to be easy. The Giants are going to be easy. Who else did I say in there? Like, they have some teams they can beat. The Broncos, those are winnable games. And two of those teams that we looked at and were like, yeah, they're probably going to lose. Well, actually, I'm not so sure about that because the Bengals and Cowboys don't look good. So maybe they can win those games. And then at that point, if you can win 6 games from the non-divisional schedule, let's say you beat the Giants, let's say you beat the Bears, the Broncos, let's say you beat the Cowboys, Cardinals, and Bengals. If you win 6 of your non-conference, non-divisional games, all of a sudden that's 7 wins right there because you already beat the Raiders. Then all you have to do is go 3-3 in the division and you're a 10-win football team. And I think 10 wins might win that division. Certainly would probably get you into the playoffs. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it could happen. And the Raiders, yeah, sorry. That was a fluky win. Congrats on beating the Ravens. Minshew got benched. We'll see who they go with. I would still probably stick with Minshew if you're trying to win, but my kind of secret take about the Raiders is that I almost think that they are trying to tank. Like, I don't think they would say it, but I kind of think that the Raiders don't want to win this year. I think they are looking at next year's quarterback class. I mean, no serious team goes into the year with Minshew and O'Connell as their 2 quarterbacks. So I think they're probably looking at 2025 draft, and they're kind of tantalizing, like, yeah, we could get a top pick, and that would be, we can go get Shador or Carson Beck and really change the trajectory of this franchise. That's probably what they're looking at. Bears continuing to struggle. The Colts with their first win. I did predict this one. This was one of the, I think it went 9-7 this weekend, so not great. This is one of the games that I did get right, though. Colts to beat the Bears in Indianapolis. Rookie quarterbacks tend to struggle on the road, and again, Caleb didn't play well. He did throw for a lot more yards. He threw for like 320 yards, and he also threw 2 touchdowns. Although one of them, let's be honest, one of them was in garbage time. But his throw to Rome Odunze, that touchdown pass to Rome Odunze, that was the first time that I really was like, okay, that was a great throw. So we'll see what he does. We'll see how he continues to improve. At 1-2, I can't say I'm all that excited about the Bears season right now. I feel like, they're gonna be a 7 or 8 win team probably, but they're not gonna make the playoffs. Let's all calm down about the Bears. And the Colts as well. I mean, the Colts, for what it's worth, I was very high on the Colts going into the season. I said I think they can make the playoffs. When they lost to Houston by 2, I was very excited about them. But the Colts, I hate to be that guy about the Colts, man. Even in a win, they didn't look that impressive. I mean, Anthony Richardson right now is completing 50% of his throws. That's not good. Anthony Richardson, the bottom line is he needs to be significantly better if the Colts want to be competitive, and he hasn't been. He just hasn't been. Jonathan Taylor played well, though. Hey, the Giants finally won a game. They moved to 1-2, beating the Browns. Malik Neighbors looks like the real deal in New York. I always say it, you give a quarterback a weapon. A great receiver can turn a bad quarterback into a decent quarterback. And Malik Neighbors might be a great receiver. I think so far, he might be the best receiver in all of football. Like, point blank, he might be the best receiver in the league so far this season. I'm not saying he's the most talented. I mean, Justin Jefferson exists. But as far as the stats go, has anyone had a better... 2 more touchdowns yesterday, and he helps the Giants to their first win. And this is a team that I think the Giants could definitely have... If they beat Washington, which if they had a healthy kicker, they'd probably beat Washington. Then they'd be 2-1 going into a matchup with Dallas that I think they can win. And I think there's going to be... The line on that game is going to be closer than we think, because I think the Giants legitimately think they can beat the Cowboys. Malik Neighbors changes their offense in a really good way. Like, in a really good way. On the other side of the matchup, the Browns looked really just lifeless. And I think with Deshaun at this point, they need to bench him, because he doesn't look like he's playing with any sort of urgency. Last year with Joe Flacco, the Browns had heart. They had a heart and soul, and his name was Joe Flacco. And I understand they don't have Nick Chubb, they don't have David Njoku. Deshaun Watson looks like he doesn't care. Just watching him play, he looks like a guy who's more interested in staying healthy and protecting his body than winning football games. He's making, as Antonio Pierce would say, business decisions, but it's to the point where, yeah, I can't tell if he wants to win, and it seems to me like he doesn't care. He plays with the exact same urgency, up 7-0 and down 21-7. He doesn't look like he's really trying to move the ball downfield. It looks like he's just going through the motions out there. I don't know what to say. Deshaun looks completely washed, and he looks like he doesn't care. They need to bench him. If I was them, I would bench him immediately for Jameis Winston, because at least Jameis would have some heart and soul. That's my take. Well, congrats to Bo Nix on his first NFL win. Rookie quarterback's now 4-5 on the season. Not terrible. The Broncos, they went into Tampa Bay and kicked their feet up and ate a sandwich, in the words of Chris Broussard. Man, Denver, looking good is the Broncos. I feel like Denver's going to be frisky this year. I think Bo Nix, he's already showing a lot of improvement. He's running the ball well too, which is something that I wasn't sure if we'd see him be super mobile. He looks mobile. He looks accurate. He hasn't thrown a touchdown pass yet. I think that will come, but Denver now has a nice win under their belts, and Tampa's a good team, I think. Although they looked pretty bad at home against a Broncos team that was winless, so we'll see about that. But either way, congrats to Denver. Yeah, Tampa, I mean, look, they had a chance. If they beat Denver, they'd have been 3-0. They'd led the division, and they could pretty clearly say, like, we're one of those top dogs in the NFC. Instead, it's the whole reason why I said I'm never going to be able to truly take Baker Mayfield seriously, because about once a month at least, he has a game like this where he just disappears. Like, you can't be a top 10 quarterback when once a month you just don't show up. When Baker's on, he's great. When Baker's off, he's terrible. And he's inconsistent like that. And it sucks that he's inconsistent, because I think everybody kind of wants to root for the guy, but he needs to prove himself a little bit more before I can go that far on the Baker Mayfield train. Let's talk the Steelers. Undefeated, man. 3-0. They beat the Chargers. Justin Herbert got hurt. That defense is really good. I think at this point, you have to consider the Steelers a top team in the AFC. I mean, going back to 2023, and I want you guys to remember this. 2023, the Steelers began the season with a loss to the 49ers, and then after that, they beat the Browns, beat the Raiders, lost to Texans. They started 2-2. Then they went to 3-2, 4-2, 4-3, 5-3, 6-3, 6-4, 7-4, 7-5, 7-6, 7-7. They were 7-7. They lost 3 in a row. They were 7-7. Since then, they are 6-0. Since starting last season 2-2, by the way, since starting last season 2-2, they are 11-5. We've now seen a full season of the Steelers being one of the best teams in the AFC, and they've won 6 regular season games in a row. Mike Tomlin and that defense, they're humming. They're absolutely humming. And I get it that Herbert got hurt and Taylor Heineke had to step in. And Justin Fields, to his credit, only 1 interception this season. I'm a big Russell Wilson guy. You know this. I'm a Seahawks fan, but I'm not sure if Russell's going to get a chance this year. This might be Justin Fields' team, which is crazy to me because he hasn't even played all that well. But he's doing what he needs to do, and they're winning. And they play the Colts next week. They're going to win that too. They're going to be 4-0. And after that, anything can happen. When you're 4-0, it's pretty hard to miss the playoffs at 4-0. We have to start thinking about the Steelers as a true playoff contender, I think. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see how the season progresses for them. Eagles-Saints. Like I said, I don't really believe in the Saints. And this game was why. Because Derek Carr turned right back into a pumpkin. And he's back on. I mean, I don't know. Is Derek Carr washed? Is Derek Carr good? I have no idea. Because he'll have a great game, and then he'll follow it up by having one of the worst games he could possibly have. He did throw a touchdown at the very end, and yeah, they were in it. I will say this, their defense played well, but the problem is Philadelphia has a terrible passing defense, and Derek Carr could do nothing against them. And so my fear is that with Derek Carr at quarterback, they're never going to be truly competitive, no matter how good Kamara is, no matter how good the defense is. I just can't trust a team with a Carr at quarterback. I can't. I've fallen for him for his mystique too many times. For the Eagles, Jalen Hurts also didn't play great, but he got the job done. And they're 2-1, and they probably should be 3-0. They realistically, the Eagles should be a 3-0 football team. They should have beat the Falcons. That's kind of where I'm at with them. They keep getting in their own way, though. They turn the ball over. Nick Sirianni always tries to go for it on 4th down. This is a really talented football team that I think is being held back by turnovers and bad coaching. And injuries. Again, no Devontae Smith, no A.J. Brown. They still found a way to win. Eagles versus Washington. That might be your NFC East championship game. Eagles versus Washington. We'll see. But they look good. I picked them to go to the NFC championship game. I'm tentatively still believing in them for that. How about the Chiefs? Speaking of teams that should be something they're not, the Falcons should be 0-3. And I'm not sure if the Falcons are actually good. Beating the Eagles is a good win, and you almost beat the Chiefs. Almost. You lost to 2 teams that are currently 3-0. So is that a good thing or is that bad? I don't know, but at the same time, if they're 0-3, we're talking about the Falcons as if they're out of it. And Kirk Cousins just hasn't been all that good this year. He started strong against the Chiefs and he faded so quickly. He was terrible in the second half. And once again, it goes back to the Kirk Cousins in primetime just isn't all that good. He fades, and when the brights are shining the lightest, when the lights are shining the brightest, Kirk Cousins fails to live up to the task almost every time. That's why it was so shocking to me when they did beat the Eagles. And that's why I don't believe in them all that much. But the South is so confusing, man, because at the same time, they should win the division. My biggest key takeaway here is, number one, the Chiefs are inevitable. I now am of the belief that they will three-peat. I think they will. Every single thing goes their way. They get all the calls. They get all of the close key plays. They get the key stops they need on defense. They're inevitable. They're going to win the Super Bowl because they are that good. And yeah, they are lucky in the sense that there's no other team that can win every single close game the way they do. They're like the Patriots. They are. They're a dynasty. Mahomes is on pace to eventually become the GOAT. Rashee Rice is great. But my takeaway with the Falcons, can we please stop pretending that Bijan Robinson is a top 3 back in the NFL? He disappears every other game. Like, the talent is undeniably there, but we need to be honest. Bijan is not a top 3 running back in the NFL. He's just not. Like, you can't be a top 3 back if you disappear every other game. You don't get to do that. You don't get to have a terrible game every other week, but, oh, well, he's just so talented. Stop it with the Bijan Robinson thing. I understand the fantasy owners want him to be good, but there's this weird conception that he's already a top, like, he's not better than Aaron Jones. He's not better than Josh Jacobs. He's not better than Saquon or Alvin Kamara or you know, there's so many running backs right now that I would take Pacheco on the Chiefs, who is hurt. I'd take Pacheco over Bijan Robinson right now. David Montgomery, I'd take. James Cook, I'd probably take. Jahmyr Gibbs, I'd probably take. Kenneth Walker, I'd probably take. Obviously, CMC. Derrick Henry still. Like, Bijan is not at that level yet because he disappears every other game. That's a cold, hard truth, Falcons fans. Malik Willis revenge game. Yeah, he looked really good. That was about as good as he's ever played. He was throwing the ball, running the ball, moving the ball downfield. Green Bay scoring 30. And Tennessee, to be fair, I think the Titans might be the worst team in the NFL. And I think Will Levis might be the worst quarterback in the NFL. And at the same time, man, they could have had Malik Willis. I mean, Malik Willis just proved it. Remember, they traded him for a 7th round pick. I think the Titans this morning waking up and saying, man, I kind of wish we'd have traded Will Levis and kept Malik Willis. But with Tennessee, he looked like he couldn't play. And with Green Bay, he looks great. And I'm starting to really change my mind about Matt LaFleur. I always said, I'm not sure if LaFleur can win without a great quarterback. Well, he's sure making Malik Willis look good. This is really, I mean, 2 games has almost completely changed my perception of Matt LaFleur as a head coach because of what he done with Malik Willis. When they get Jordan Love back, they're going to be dangerous. They're a good team, very young, they're scrappy, they want it, they're a playoff team. This is a playoff team, and it was a beatdown on Tennessee. And Malik Willis, he got his revenge. Congratulations. The Josh Allen MVP campaign, that's also back. I mean, I feel like this happens every year where Josh Allen has a great start to the season. Like the 5th year in a row, Josh Allen is the September MVP. And he always kind of fades late. But one thing that's different, no interceptions. Since Joe Brady took over as their offensive coordinator, I think their offense has been really good. I really like Khalil Shakir. Keon Coleman had a nice day. Dalton Kincaid, James Cook, they were firing on all cylinders. And the Jaguars are just terrible. They need to fire Doug Peterson. They might need to bench Trevor Lawrence for a couple of games, to be honest. Trevor Lawrence, forget it. I said Will Levis is the worst quarterback in the league. Trevor Lawrence might be the worst quarterback in the league. This is like Blake Bortles if Blake Bortles had been the number 1 overall pick. This is bad for Jacksonville. They look bad. They look terrible. They've lost 8 straight. They were 8-4 last year. That was a long time ago. They've lost 8 straight. And they look unsavable right now. I don't know how you save the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's bad for Jags fans. Sorry, Jags fans. It's bad. But yeah, the Bills, I mean, it's the Bills. They're gonna win a lot of games. They're gonna win the division, and then they're gonna get to the playoffs and they're gonna lose because that's what they do. And I hope that when they do, Sean McDermott gets fired and maybe Joe Brady gets the promotion because Joe Brady, he has that offense cooking right now. James Cook is cooking. Yeah, man. And Josh Allen, for what it's worth, for all the years he's had a great September, this might be his best September yet because he hasn't turned the ball over. And that's always been his kryptonite was turnovers. He hasn't done that yet. But let's talk about the team that maybe could challenge them in the AFC East. All right, you know me. You know I hate to overreact. The Washington Commanders. Are they going to make the playoffs? Is Jaden Daniels right now, he's on Rookie of the Year watch. He's on MVP watch. Kid's been fantastic. Threw his first touchdown passes last night. He does it with his legs. He does it with his arms. He's throwing such a pretty football, man. Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels put on an absolute quarterback clinic last night. That was two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right there, going at it. And I understand the Bengals are 0-3. Joe Burrow is still a great quarterback. The Bengals might not be a great team anymore, though. Like, they're 0-3. Their defense can't stop anybody. Not on the run, not through the air. The Bengals might be a bad team with a great quarterback. This might be turning into the Matt Ryan Falcons, where it's like, we all know they have a great quarterback, but with a bad defense and bad personnel, they might just not be all that good. And the Falcons, they went to a Super Bowl, lost a Super Bowl, but most of the years when Matt Ryan was with Atlanta, they were inconsistent. They won the division a few times. Cincinnati won the division a few times. And Matt Ryan always had great stats, won an MVP one year, lost a Super Bowl. But there were about 5 or 6 seasons in Atlanta where the Falcons were bad, and it was never because of Matt Ryan, but it was always because of the other factors. And that might be the best comp right now for the Bengals. Joe Burrow is Matt Ryan, and the Bengals are the Falcons. That could be where this thing is headed. They're 0-3. They're not going to make the playoffs, are they? I mean, I picked them to win the division. I kind of feel like an idiot now. We'll see. A lot of smart people picked them to win the division, so we'll see. Could they go on a run and make the playoffs? Absolutely. They certainly have the talent there. But this is their last year, because next year they lose Chase, they lose T. Higgins. One of those two definitely they lose. They potentially will lose both of them. Meanwhile, Jaden Daniels, rookie record, best completion percentage for a rookie ever in a game, 91%. He looks like the real deal. And it's funny because everyone was all high on Caleb. Jaden was the one who won the Heisman Trophy. Jaden was the one who put up the great numbers in college. Caleb was fine, but USC was never actually winning any big games, and neither have the Bears. We'll see, but right now, Jaden looks a lot better than Caleb. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets are back. That was the big storyline on Thursday, man. Aaron had the best game he's had in 2 years. He looked like MVP Aaron. I don't know if we're going to get MVP Aaron every week. I probably would say we won't. But if he can play 75% of what he did against the Patriots for the rest of the season, this is a playoff team, and this is a dangerous playoff team. They could win in the playoffs. They have a good defense, they have good weapons, a good quarterback, and an improved offensive line. Yeah, they can make the playoffs and get there. And Rodgers for comeback player of the year, we're only 3 weeks into the season. Right now, he's pretty much a lock for comeback player of the year. I don't know who else it would be. So kudos to him, man. First great game as a Jet. They're 2-1. Can they challenge Buffalo for that division? We'll see. I don't think they can. But I think they can win a playoff game. And I think they might get a coach fired when they beat them in the playoffs. They're not a Super Bowl team. They're not as good as the Chiefs, obviously. But yeah, the Jets look good.